afternoon. Welcome to the live episode of my Safe Bet show, and it gives me the greatest of honors to welcome the Super Bowl 42 champion, which is a game that should live in infamy for obvious reasons forever, but even more importantly, New York Giants Ring of Honor holder and a good friend and a good man, Mr. Amani Toomer. So welcome, Amani. It's great to have you.
No, it's great to be here. I would have dressed up, but I thought it was just like a...
No, you're fine. You're fine. You're doing great. This is my cheat sheet, by the way. I'm not checking the latest MLB scores. So if you bear with me, that's what I'll be using throughout the podcast. There will be an opportunity to ask Armani questions at the end of it. But let's get going. Let's start by talking about our beloved state of New Jersey. You were, of course, born in California, and you played your college football at Michigan, and we will, of course, come on to talk about that as well. But of course, these days, if you pardon yet another pun, you are New Jersey Patriot. As in Patriot with a small p, not a capital P, of course. So what actually made you stay in the state where you played your pro football?
Well, I wanted to get into sports media after I got done, and there's really no better place to be in sports media than in New York City. There's just so many different... you got all the major networks out here, and there's just a lot of opportunities to do stuff. And I think by being out here at that time, I was able to experience a whole bunch of different, people in the industry, and it's just a great place to be. And the energy out here, I love it. I mean, I'm from Berkeley, California. The energy is just a little different, a little slower, a little easier. But I just love the fact that people out here are so driven, and there's always a lot of energy around. And that really is what kept me around, the energy of New York City.
So love the energy, the passion and pace. We got the New Jersey contingent down here represented by a few people, but in particular our friend BP3, who's shown us a lot of passion earlier. So in a similar vein, actually, because not everybody in this country is necessarily a big fan, of course, outside of the gambling industry, of the state of New Jersey. They would even call New Jersey the drive-through state. Shame on them. I will not name the name of the legislator who went as far as calling it the garbage state, not the garden state. So what message would you send to those people who are clearly in the wrong?
There is a lot to Jersey that people don't know. There's a lot of very beautiful places, especially you go inland or you go down to the shore. There's a lot of nice places out there that I just don't think I think once you come into Newark and you see the industrial areas, maybe it might skew your impressions of New Jersey. But if you go and see how nice it is and how they got the mountains up in Mountain Creek, you got great places to go skiing, you got great places to go to the beach, you can go mountain biking, there's great cycling, there's a lot of stuff to do, a lot of outdoorsy stuff that people just don't associate with Jersey that you probably should get. And plus it's closer to New York City, so all that together, it's a win for me.
So clearly, if Governor Murphy is looking for ambassador for his state, which is, just like in your case, not his home state originally, you should be his first choice. Let's move on to talk about your college career and Michigan. Just let me kick it off by a few numbers here. They are seriously impressive. Because while at Michigan you had, and feel free to correct the numbers, I got that from Wikipedia, 124 receptions for 2,144 yards and 12 receiving touchdowns. He also returned 46 punts for 2 touchdowns and 14 kickoff returns. As I've said, a truly stellar career. So what was it like when you were at Michigan, being, if not the, then at the very least one of the stars at the campus?
Yeah.
How did you feel about that?
I felt great. I mean, I loved Michigan. I liked the school more than I liked the football program. I just liked the fact that there was just so many free thinkers there, and the school was really challenging in terms of the academics. It was a great place to be, but in terms of like the partying and having fun, it wasn't that place for that. It was a very academic school. I really enjoyed it. It was a great place for it to be at that time. I just don't understand how people who go to these schools, these party schools, how they get their football done, how do they get their schoolwork done, how do they focus in on stuff, because there's so much to do. There was nothing to do. I remember during finals, you wanted to try and go and do something. Everybody was in the library, so you just had to, okay, I'll study, So that's what I remember about college. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, you picked your favorite book then? Okay, I shall digress. So, in terms of pressure, because you started talking about it wasn't a party school, so
Yeah.
what was the level of pressure on you, both in, well, human and education terms? I need to get my studies done, but I also need to focus on my football.
Yeah, it was pretty easy, I thought, because there was two things I had to focus on. It was, I had to focus on my school, and then I had to focus on, getting into the NFL, living out a dream. And, they did a great job of helping me do that. And so, I look back at that situation. It was good. It was hard. We didn't have the 20-hour work weeks or whatever they have now. We had 2-a-days, and we had it was a tough school, and it was a tough program. And that's why one of the monikers when you walk in is those who stay will be champions. And it sounds good, but if you really think about what it says, it's like, we're not going to treat you very well, but if you stay, you'll win a championship, because this is a hard place to be. And it was great. Now I understand. I learned a lot about bureaucracy, dealing with the schools, the different, doing different things. You had to talk to the teachers to try and make sure that you had an opportunity to participate in all the athletic venues, because sometimes the classes were in different times, and I had to, doing all the work to try and keep myself eligible, keep myself, in a good frame of mind, and for both the football team and academically, it was challenging.
And in terms of challenges, of course, what came next was the draft.
Yeah.
We just had draft already the NFL, but we're all fans, I suspect, in the room. So these days, all you tend to see on TV are those guys who already know that they will get picked.
Yeah.
Round 1, round 2, they turn up, with all due respect to them, big units with these massive golden chains around their necks. So
Yeah.
they might have had their media training
Yeah, definitely meeting training.
behind their belt.
Yeah.
What was it like back then when you were going through it? How did you feel about it, and has it evolved since? Did you
It's definitely
did you wear a massive golden chain around your neck?
No, I didn't have the big gold chain, but I had a party at my house. I had the barbecue, and then I found out I got drafted by the New York Giants. I was actually supposed to go a little bit higher. I was supposed to go late first round. I ended up going early second round, which wasn't too bad. But the fact that I went to New York, that was one of the things that really perked me up, because to be 21 in New York City with a little bit of change in your pocket and the opportunity and the free time that, I wasn't really playing, so I just was kind of running around the city, having fun, experiencing the city in a great way. It was one of the best. I don't know any place that I would have rather been at that period of time, just being around New York City. And it was a lot different than it was now. I remember it was a lot more, there was more, it was more New York, like there wasn't Disneyland in Disney wasn't on Times Square, let's just say that.
And it certainly worked out for the Giants, because if I may stick to the numbers theme, you hold the New York Giants club records with 9,497 receiving yards, 668 receptions, and 54 receiving touchdowns, which, ladies and gentlemen, I believe deserves another applause, because here's the man, the ultimate giant. So you joined the organization in 96.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like back then, and how has it changed since? Because you're still around the Giants, because we talk about that all the time.
Yeah, no, it was completely different. The Giants, the organization wasn't as they weren't as focused as they are now. I remember we had our coach Dan Reeves. He had his players, and then we had George Young, who had his players, and the locker room was split right down the middle, and it was just a very strange environment, because the bottom line wasn't to be the best football team. The bottom line was just to stay on the team and to see how much, how much fun you can have in the city. And it was just a very, I don't want to say, it wasn't a very conducive place for winning. And now, fast forward, they hired Jim Fossil, then they hired Tom Coughlin, and it really changed the organization around in terms of what professionalism it is now. And plus, they've had a couple coaches in between there, but I think Brian Daboll is doing a great job. So I think the organization is in a much better place than when I first got there. I remember when I first got there, we'd go to a club and we had these little NFL players cards, and we'd show them the players cards, and they would like, "What team is this?" And I was like, "I'm on the Giants." They're like, "The Giants? Man, go to the back of the line. This is you guys are pretty bad." So then, come full circle after we won the Super Bowl in 2007, when we beat the Patriots.
Did you?
Badly. Yeah, we beat them badly.
By 3 points.
Hey, a win is a win. But anyway, so we beat the Patriots. So then we go into Nobu, and me, Eli, and Sean O'Hara, and Dave Deal, we walk in, and the whole restaurant stands up and gives us a standing ovation. I was like, guys, we made it. They respect the Giants here in New York. It was great.
The Giants have definitely arrived. By the way, that sounds like what you've just said about the Giants back then, like the modern day Rangers, the hockey players. You know, they come to the city to have a lot of fun, and that's why they haven't won anything since 94.
What's your hockey team?
The Bruins. Come on.
Oh,
you could
really?
You could have guessed that, but I'm still grieving. Anybody on the current Giants roster you can foresee beating your records anytime soon?
Well, they got this new guy, Jalen Hyatt, and he was from Tennessee, 3rd round pick this year. I thought he should have been a 1st rounder. Dominant player in college, ridiculous speed. I think he has an opportunity to do it. I think he has that it factor. I'm really interested to see how well he does. Of course, you can't really translate over how somebody does in college and translate directly to the pros, but I just feel so like when I watch certain players, I'm like, yeah, that guy. There's something about it. I don't know if I can even articulate it, but there's certain guys that I really like. I really like Justin Jefferson. I really liked the guy who's in Cincinnati right now. Jamar Chase, yeah, those guys, because there's certain like the way they run routes and how they understand how to set defenders up. I think Jalen Hyatt has the same type of ability in him.
And as always, I shall wish the Giants the best of luck. Absolutely.
We might play you guys this year. We do play the Patriots.
Yeah, I know. And
I'm still on the team.
We'll get routed. Let's talk about responsible gambling, because ultimately that's what this event is all about. 2 personal stories. I've told the first one before, because we're, of course, honored to have you on the Entain Foundation US. And in all honesty, when Mr. Pasquale arranged for the 2 of us to meet for the first time, I had all those jitters, because Amani is a true superstar. And also, I happened to be rooting for the wrong team. So I decided to spill the beans right away. Look, I like you. Hopefully you like me. But for sake of total transparency, I'm a Patriots fan, and Amani turns to me and goes, I love the Patriots, because had it not been for the Patriots, I wouldn't have had my Super Bowl ring.
There's a Cowboys fan in here, too. Yeah, thank you, Cowboys.
Thank you, Cowboys. You know how to play, not necessarily how to win, sadly. But then back in your day, when you were with the Giants, you know, what was it like? Were you exposed to any pressure from the bookies to do anything untoward? Or there was nothing like that because you guys were being protected or just even blissfully, with all due respect, ignorant of what may be happening on the streets?
We were definitely ignorant of what's happening on the streets. People still try to explain to me the lines, and I'm like, I don't know, plus, minus, it makes my head hurt. Sharp betting, I don't get it. But handicap and all, it's very hard for me to understand, because being on the inside and going through game plan meetings and seeing how plans change in a minute, and how random it is if like you're going to have a good game or if somebody else is going to have a good game, depending on how the defense play. There's just so many variables that I just don't understand how people can bet on sports successfully, and people do it. And I don't understand how the lines are always so close. It blows my mind. But there wasn't really that much gambling per se, but it was like when I started, my end of my career is when fantasy football started becoming big. And that was when people come up to me, and I remember I was struggling one year. They're like, "Why didn't you score a touchdown?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? It's my life." It was one of these things. But yeah, it was that would probably be the extent of it. I just worry about the lessons that were learned in Europe in terms of how they rolled out gambling and how we can learn from them instead of running into the same mistakes that they ran into and not regulating it right, not having the safety nets and making sure that it is, like I heard before, somebody was talking about how they want to make it a real business so that it's sustained, and you can't have problem gambling to have a sustained business, because your customers ultimately need to be protected and feel that they're feel that they are there's something, there's a safety net for them if things were to go wrong. So that's one of the things that I really that Martin and I both agree upon, and that's why I'm here pretty much.
And I'm sure with the likes of you on board, and thank you for that again, we will definitely get there. Actually, at that very first meeting, you made another point going back to your college days, which was, well, when I joined the Michigan football program,
Yeah.
the first thing we were through the door, and the first thing we were told was, well, betting's a big no-no.
Yeah.
Which is fair enough. So do you think these days, with sports betting regulated, but also with the likes of the nil deals that a lot of college athletes, the top athletes, have entered into, is that pressure even higher?
I think the pressure is higher because I think there's a line that's blurred. Like, because when I got to Michigan, it was like no gambling, no nothing, don't get associated with any gamblers, and there was never any. And so it was looked upon as something that was illegal, and it was bad, whatever. But now it's not that way, and then you see people kind of, because business is now becoming more mainstream. It's becoming acceptable in society. People are doing it. And, I think there's, some players, get caught up in these types of situations, trying to bet on parlays, not understanding that, even Calvin Ridley's a guy who's just been reinstated, who had a parlay that had his own team on it. He got suspended for a year, and I think there was a couple other players recently that got suspended. And I think because the lines are blurred, there needs to be more education to the players on what's acceptable, and kind of let there be some real guardrails to the players to make sure that they understand. And that's why, I wanted to, partner with Etain and trying to go to different colleges and make sure that there is their education, let these players know what's okay, what's not okay, because there's a lot of gray area now that could make it harder for players, because back in my day it was bad. Now it's kind of like, is it bad? So I feel like education is a real big part that needs to happen with all the athletes and with the consumers as well.
That's a perfect segue into the next question, because you've already alluded to the most recent suspensions. I suppose we cannot not talk about that. And you've made the point that it comes down to education, but perhaps to pick up on another theme that you've raised, and those are the hate-filled tweets that some players receive. Like one of the most recent examples in the league last year, tactical play. You got a touchdown scoring opportunity, but at the same time you're running down the clock. So of course you may find yourself sliding down 2 yards away from the end zone.
Yeah.
And of course all these fantasy sports players and even real money gambling players, they're going nuts because why didn't he score? Because I had over under at this, or he hasn't scored in the game just yet. So what is he doing? So do you think that this is at the back of players' minds, or you're just on the field, you're in your zone and you don't even think about it, you're just trying to do the best for your team? Or in other words, do these hate-filled tweets influence players' behavior, or do they have thick enough skin to ignore them?
Oh, I see. I'm not of the generation where I need to follow Twitter. I need to be on Instagram. I can very easily just turn it off and not even blink an eye. But I think a lot of these guys now grew up with it, so it's a different kind of medium for them. It's something that they look to kind of socialize on, and I think it's much more. I think they take it much more seriously than I would, or than players my era did. Because if you didn't like the newspaper reporter who was writing bad stories about him, you just didn't pick up the paper that day. You just waited for the next day. Or if you, there was no access to, like nobody could give me their opinion that I didn't want anyway. Now it's like you put yourself out there. Now there's all these people that can interact with you where, I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's bad. It just kind of is what it is. And I don't think they think about it 1 second, because at the end of the day, most of these guys in the NFL, in any professional league, what they want to be doing is playing. And if you get caught up in gambling, or if you get caught up in any type of thing like that, I mean, just like you were talking about earlier, the first thing that they said to me when I was at Michigan, we walked in the meeting, and there was the first time all the scholarship athletes were talking to the coach, and the coach brings up Art Schlichter. And he was like, he was a great quarterback. He got caught up in gambling and never made the NFL. There's a lot of things you can get away with. You can't get away with, being involved with gambling if you ever want to play, because, it's just, that's the third rail. And so we were so afraid of anything that had to do with any type of gambling. So that's how we took it. This is a totally different era. I respect that it's a lot harder for them, but we're going to see.
Let's bring it home by talking about your post-career life, if I may put it that way, starting with your charity work. So since you've hung up your cleats, so to speak, you've been involved in numerous charities and lent your name to a long list of projects. And thanks again for serving on the board of the Entain Foundation US. So what was the motivation behind it? Do you find it gratifying, but could it also be frustrating every now and then?
I find it both. That's a great way to put it, because I think it's gratifying because I feel like I'm on the side of trying to help athletes maneuver. It's a very short period of time, and a mistake that you make as an athlete could totally derail your entire the perception, because a lot of these guys now are brands, and they use that brand to make money while they're playing and after. And if you are to mess up that brand, you could hurt future earnings. So I feel like the education piece with Etain is why I really wanted to be a part of it and try to help these players, deal with the stresses of being a professional athlete, and stresses and understanding the situation that they're in a wide range, so that they could understand that those little decisions that they make could not that they think are innocent could cost them a lot throughout their entire life.
They also happen to be a rising star in TV punditry. So you talk about sports. TV actually, when me and the family moved here, owing to the pandemic, we couldn't really get together. Mm-hmm. But I did happen to have seen you on the MSG TV commenting on the chance. There's Amani, I need to go and catch up with him. And these days, amongst other shows, you're starring on Bonjour Sports Talk. By the way, still waiting for my invitation to the show, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
but
I gotta get you on. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
On a very serious note, what was that particular transition like? On field to off field, but talking about what's been happening on the field of glory.
Well, what I learned is that people really don't care about the on the field X's and O's as much. You got to put it into like something that's more entertaining. Because I remember sitting in meetings and they were just boring. Like, if this guy does that, you do. And it's just the X's and O's of sports is not what people want. They want the drama. They want the how you can relate to everybody else, because sports is just like everything else. It's a people business, and the personalities is what really sells sports. So learning that, and then I was really strange, like how much people actually know about what's going on in the locker rooms, because I always thought it was like a private thing. But then I got into sports media, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we knew all about that." I was like, "Really?" And there's so much interest in sports, and there's so many personalities, great personalities, that there's so much to talk about. It's great. You love to see the story of the guy that comes up from nothing, or the story of the guy that really figures out, hits his stride. And that's what Bonjour Sports is really about. It's about the positive side of sports. We're not going to get on there, and it's on Prime TV, and it's streaming. And so you're going to have to. The whole sport thing is about celebration of sports instead of the the back and forth, the debate show stuff. It's not like that at all. It's a very positive, uplifting fan experience that they can really get behind, and it's one of those shows where you watch and we're not going to talk about how bad somebody is. We're not going to talk about how somebody shouldn't be in the league. We try to look at the brighter side of sports.
I was going to say, unlike on the likes of ESPN, you actually don't yell at one another.
No, we're not yelling.
For the best.
Yeah.
People may have strong opinions, but there are other ways of delivering them. And actually, what we talked about the other day is that all sorts of sports come up on that show, including the likes of cricket. If there's still any Brits in the audience, I'm sure.
Cricket.
Mr. Buck, he can give us a masterclass on cricket. Not just lived experience, but also cycling. You're a cyclist yourself. You really got into your cycling. So I'd be remiss in my duties if, for the benefit of the audience, I didn't ask you about a few sports predictions. Mm-hmm. Perhaps we may want to start with Tour de France. I appreciate that Tadej is injured, but he might be back on time. So do you think it will be Tadej or Jonas Vingegaard will defend his title?
Well, my wife is Danish, so I got to go with Jonas. Jonas Vingegaard. That's funny because last year when it was in Denmark for the first 3 stages, I was more excited seeing how much Denmark really embraced the tour the first 3 days. And when Jonas started winning, I was going crazy. And she was just like, I don't really like sports. And I'm like, but he's from Denmark. How could you not? And it was great. And to see Jonas, like when they did the announcements before the tour started, and when all of Tivoli, which is like the Disney version, it's like Disneyland for cycling.
Be careful, we got Danes in the audience as well.
Tivoli, it's like Disneyland. It's like a version of Disney. Ish. I know. It's older than Disneyland. Put it that way, right? It's one of the oldest amusement parks in the world, right? It's in the middle of Copenhagen, and that's where they had the call-outs, where they bring out all the riders. They come up and they say hi to the crowd. So anyway, Jonas comes up. Make a long story short, he comes up and the whole crowd just starts chanting his name, Vinga, go, and the guy starts crying. He starts crying because these cyclists are they on the road by themselves for hours and hours, and they get very little recognition. And he goes back home the first time it's been in Denmark, and they start cheering his name. The guy starts crying. I was like, he's gonna win, and it was great to watch that whole tour and to watch the teamwork of the teamwork that his team had, the Lotto Jumbo team had. It was great.
And you were proven right, of course. At the end of this year's show, we'll be chanting our favorite Dane's name. Say Mark. But let's park that. We can do it after the awards ceremony. I will not ask you, and that's the final question, before I finally give the audience an opportunity to ask a few questions, if they have any. I will not ask you about the Giants, because from my Patriots perspective, I'd get upset. I wouldn't like the answer. But with the NHL and the NBA, I'm upset about the Bruins as well. But let's ask the question.
They have a lot of teams in Boston that win a lot of regular season games, and then
fell flat on their face. But with the NHL and NBA playoffs raging on, who do you think will be the champions in each league?
You know what's funny? I grew up a Golden State Warriors fan my whole life. My dad had season tickets, but the Lakers, you got to understand, the teams that get pushed throughout the entire season, this team started 2-10, and now they somehow miraculously made the playoffs. And they're up 3-1 on the Golden State Warriors, the reigning champs. Being able to overcome things throughout the whole season, they totally revamped their team midway through during the trade deadline. I just understand that teams that are stressed, teams that are always under pressure, are the teams that are winning. Just like the Florida Panthers are another team that have barely made the playoffs, but they were the President's Trophy winners the year before, and now they're just kind of like on this roll where they're a team that's been stressed and live in this uncomfortable zone, and they beat your own.
I know this is some kind of on a vengeance trail, because I'm getting more and more upset. Yeah. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, would you happen to have any questions for Amani before we wrap it up? Jessica never lets me down. Thank you.
I'm so greedy with the mic at these. I feel bad. But you mentioned that you didn't know what it would be like to go to a party school. Now, much different from when you were in the league, Vegas has become so central to the NFL. They've had the draft there. They're going to have the Super Bowl there. I'm just curious your thoughts of if you were a player that's, having events in Vegas, what would you want the league to kind of tell you and caution you about?
Meaning about the gambling?
Or just like, you're going to Vegas. Here's what you should know as a player in the NFL. Like, don't do this. Do this. This is okay.
Yeah, no, like when you go to Vegas, like you're not going to, like when we travel for a Sunday game, right? We'll travel Saturday morning. So we'll get there Sunday at like midday, right? So Saturday at like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Then we have a meeting at 7:30. So you have like 2 hours to do stuff, 3 hours to do stuff. So I don't really think it's going to be an issue. Most teams have curfew, so you got to be in your hotel room. And if you go out if you leave curfew, yeah, that's an issue. I don't know. I've never done that. So I've heard people done it, but I've never done that. I value I didn't want to give away any of the money that I was earning because it's a big fine when you do that. I just don't think it'd be a hard place to play, Vegas. I don't think it'd be hard at all. I mean, the only thing I'd worry about would be the heat and the altitude. That's about it.
Yeah, the Vegas heat. Would we have any more questions?
Thank you. I'm curious, you mentioned your earlier kind of exposure to gambling when you were in college and were warned against doing that. You've kind of seen the evolution of sports betting into the online realm. And I'm interested to know if, in your observations, how online betting has impacted player motivation with respect to brand, as you mentioned, and the potential for revenue generating.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, what are your observations of what the spectator experience has been? How do people view and enjoy and engage sports now, perhaps differently than when you first came into the sports realm?
Well, I think fantasy sports have done a great job for the NFL. Like, and for the NFL to get on board and embrace fantasy, I think opened the door for sports betting. But I think fantasy did a great job because now every game is important, every play is important, and I think the fan experience, I think it's much better because now if you want to put a wager, you can do it in-game gambling. You can do it. I'm like, can you do it during the game? Right?
Yes, you can.
Yeah. So I mean, just to make the game, So I think it gets people another avenue to enjoy the sports. Now, is there a caution? Could it go the wrong way? It could, but I feel like that's why you need to have guardrails for problem gamblers. You need to have guardrails for everybody to make sure that you want to be. I always want sports to be better than it was before. I want to leave it better than it was when I got there. And when you look at how much sports has improved in terms of the TV coverage, in terms of the interest, and in terms of everything, like, it's just a totally different. At least the NFL is a totally different entity than when I first got in the league, and it's great. But with the growth, with the success, there has to be some sort of there's got to be caution. We got to learn from a lot of stuff that happened in La Liga in Europe to make sure that none of the scandals that happen out there happen here in the U.S.